The second season of the Villainess isekai, called My Next Life as a Villainess All Routes Lead to Doom X, aired during the summer 2021 anime season. I enjoyed the first season a lot, but I also felt like it was a complete experience. Katarina accomplished her goal of avoiding the death flags in the Otome Game world where she reincarnated and got herself a harem in the process. We could have not gotten a season 2 and I would have been pretty satisfied. So starting out, I was a bit worried that the second season would feel unnecessary. I'm happy to report that my concerns were quickly wiped away by the show. In fact, I think ending the Death Flags plotline in the first season was actually exactly what the show needed. I won't give any spoilers about the plot of season 2, but I will say that the show is able to become much more episodic and isn't constrained by predetermined plot points that Katarina knows will happen. We get to explore the world beyond the constraints of the original game, so at this point Katarina's knowledge is exactly the same as the viewers. This allows the show to effectively break out of the isekai genre. If you hadn't seen season 1, aside from a few nods here and there, it would be really hard to tell that this show is an isekai anymore. Katarina's reincarnation is no longer important for her progression, so there's no longer much of a need to focus on it. Katarina has really become part of the world, and her identity is now heavily tied to her new life instead of her old one. The show is now a fantasy slice-of-life romance show with elements of both comedy and drama throughout. There are some disappointing elements with the writing though. A few conflicts pop up over the course of the season, but they're resolved almost immediately with relatively little tension built. And unfortunately, the nature of the threats that the characters face is much too similar to those of the first season. There really isn't anything new brought to the table in terms of dangers and antagonists. Overall, that's alright though. My Next Life as a Villainess is a show that focuses less on creating a compelling plot and more on creating compelling characters. One of the show's greatest strengths is that even though there are so many major cast members, they all get a decent amount of screen time. The show neither feels like it's leaving people out nor playing favorites. While certain romantic arcs did advance somewhat over the course of the season, it's still impossible to tell who Katarina will end up with in any future seasons, assuming she ends up with anybody. If you're someone who really wants to see romantic progression, you might be disappointed, but if you appreciate the silly harem element of the show, you'll have a good time. The other great thing about the characters this season is that many of them have begun to connect more with each other, and not just with Katarina. We also get to learn a good amount of backstory information, though at times the flashbacks do drag on a bit much. Season 2 of My Next Life as a Villainess adds fewer new characters than the first did, but that's to be expected considering the large size of the existing cast. The new characters fit right in, and they're all impacted one way or another by Katarina's unique blend of kindness and airheadedness. One of the coolest new characters is Jeffrey, the older brother of Katarina's fiancé, who turns out a lot different from what you might initially expect. He's voiced by Takahito Koyasu, the voice of Dio, and is very memorable despite his relatively small part. Next, I want to talk about the visuals. My Next Life as a Villainess Season 2 is animated by Silverlink, which is already handling two other shows this season, The Great Jahi Will Not Be Defeated and Make You Black Company. The animation in Villainess Season 2 is solid throughout. It's not jaw-dropping, but it clearly has effort put into it. The exception is Episode 8, which really ramps up the animation and has some absolutely gorgeous scenes. But when it comes to visuals in this show, the animation is far outshined by the backgrounds. The backgrounds are often stunning watercolor-like paintings that give the show a unique aesthetic that's instantly recognizable. Oftentimes, I find myself staring at the details of the setting more than the characters on screen. But the characters can be pretty captivating too. Silverlink is especially good at facial expressions, particularly with Katarina. The number of silly faces she makes during one episode is staggering. I also need to mention that My Next Life as a Villainess Season 2 has an amazing soundtrack. It's mostly string quartet or orchestral music, but there's a huge variety of unique selections, and they do an amazing job of intensifying dramatic scenes, making the comedy even funnier, and creating memorable romantic moments. The voice cast is also fantastic. Maya Uchida shines as Katarina Clays, and she brings a seemingly endless amount of energy and enthusiasm to the role. The show has big stars like Inori Minase and Yoshitsugu Matsuoka, but it also has actors with fewer existing roles like Shota Aoi and Miho Okusaki, who hold their own and sound very professional. Overall, I would give My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom X a 7.5 out of 10. The plot has its flaws, and people looking for unique dangers or a lot of romantic progression may be disappointed, but to me the season was far better than I expected and is as good or almost as good as the first. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing for weekly content. I'm Matrix from Matrix AM, Anime, and more, and I hope you have a great day.